You saw in the last exercise how we created an array using one simple method. We're going to be using the same information and we're going to be creating a multidimensional associative array, and then we're going to use a for each loop so that we can increment through the code. I'm going to create the array in a different way. So I'll start off by creating my music array. I'm going to open up my square braces, and then within the square braces, we're going to be creating nested arrays. So I'll create another set of square braces, and we're going to use key value pairs. So I'm going to assign the artist key to be equal to the name of the artist. I'll use a comma, and then I'm going to set up my next key, which in this case is going to be album, and we'll set a value for that. And then we're going to set the year made, and this one will be a numeric value instead of a string value, and finally our genre. Now, because I want to use several artists here, I'm going to separate my nested arrays with commas. So I'll just go ahead and enter the information for the other artists. So each of these nested arrays is going to have its own set of artist, album, year made, and genre settings, and then the values are all going to be unique based on the artist information. What we're going to do is we're just going to echo out this information to our page. So after my closing square brace for the main music array, I'm going to use a couple of echo statements so that I can pre-format the text, and we'll use print R, and we'll print out the value of our music array. If we save this and go look in the browser, you can see that the information from our arrays is going to be printed out. And because I'm using the pre-tags, it indents and formats this information. I'm going to comment this information out, and what we're going to do is we're now going to present the information using a for each loop. Using the for each statement, we can loop through the arrays. For each pass, the value of the current array element is going to be assigned to a variable, and the array pointer is moved by one, and in the next pass, the next element is going to be processed. So the syntax for using a for each loop looks something like this, where we're going to write our for each, and then in the parentheses, we're going to use the array as a value, and then we'll have our code to be executed. It's also common that you would see the condition written as array as, and then you can think of this as being the key, which we're going to assign to a value. So in our case here, I'm going to change this code, and in the parentheses, I'm going to say music as, and I'm going to use the word musician. Now this could actually be anything. We could use just a character or whatever value that we want. Inside of our curly brace, I'm going to echo out a UL element, and then we're going to nest another for each loop. And here I'm going to use my musician alias, and I'm going to set this equal to a key, and we're going to assign that to the value. I'll open my next set of curly braces, and then we're going to use an echo statement here, and we're going to echo out what we want to be printed to the page. So here I'm going to open an li tag, open a strong tag, then I'm going to print the key. So artist is going to be the key, album, year made. Then I'm going to close my strong tag and have a colon, and then we're going to print out the value. And each of these items is going to be its own list item. After the nested for each statement, I'm going to echo out the final and closing UL tag. If we save our page and we come back to our browser and refresh, you can see that I'm getting an error, and I neglected to put my closing semicolon after my echo statement. Let's save again and we'll refresh, and now you can see that each of the different bands or musicians is being printed out as a list, and the keys are going to be bold and the values are going to be displayed. So in this way, I can control the formatting of this information, and I can get specific pieces of information based on what I want to do on my page. If I wanted to get a specified bit of information, I could go ahead and I could use the print statement to pick up certain values from my array. So here I'll use the print statement, and I'm going to combine text with information from my array. So you can see that I'm going to print a paragraph tag. And in the paragraph, I'm going to say the artist, and then in italicized, I'm going to get the 5th item from my music array, which in this case is Caljader, and I'm going to print the artist key, and then I'm going to say plays an eclectic mix of, and I'm going to get, again, the 5th item, so we're using our 0 index here, and I'm going to get the genre information. If we save this and we refresh our page, you can see that a paragraph is now printed with the information that we specified. We're using a combination of numeric values to access our key because I never assigned any sort of name to the various artists. Each artist is assigned a specific index. So the first one is 0, the second one is 1, the third one is 2, and so on and so forth. Because I've assigned strings to the keys within the nested arrays, I'll need to access those by putting the actual key value. If I try to pass in a number here and we save, you're going to see that I'm going to get an error message. And that's because I'm using a named key, so there is nothing that is associated with 3 in my array, but as long as I'm using the correct syntax, I'll be able to pick up that information. Note that even though our subarrays in this example have the same structure, that isn't required with multidimensional arrays. So I could have my subarrays containing completely different key information. I want to show you another way in which we can work with multidimensional arrays. I'm going to start a new file to do that. I'm going to get rid of the information that I don't need, and we're going to set up a different type of array. So here, I'm going to set up unique arrays for some of my artists. I'll start off by creating several arrays. This time, I'm going to create 3 separate arrays. Each array is going to be associated with one of my musicians. So the first one is CTE, Cage the Elephant, and it's going to pass in the information. The second one is the Black Keys, and it'll pass in that information, and so on and so forth. I'll just use 3 examples for this particular portion of our class. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to create a separate array. This is going to be my musician array. And my musician array is going to be equal to, and here I'm going to use a string key value. So I'm going to make the words Cage the Elephant equal to my CTE array. And we're going to do that with the other 2 arrays that we have here as well. So these first 3 arrays are just standard arrays. We're going to use them as values for my larger array. This array, which I'm calling CTE, which is short for Cage the Elephant, uses numbers for the keys and strings and numbers for the values. The second 2 arrays are going to work in the exact same way. The musician array is my main multidimensional array, and it's the master array for the script that we're using. It's using strings for keys and arrays for values. We're using our short array syntax to create these arrays, but we could be using the array function as well. So now that I have my arrays all made, I'm going to use a for each loop so that I can access every element of every array. And we're going to nest for each loops like we did in the last exercise, but this one will look a little bit different. We'll use the for each loop, and we're going to say musician as name equals value. Then I'm going to use my print statement to print out the name of the musician. And let's have the name of the musician be bold. So right now, if I save my page, I should have a list of the 3 musicians. Now what we're going to do is we're going to nest another for each loop. So I'm going to use for each, and this time we're going to pick up the values, and then we'll just print the album, but let's actually wrap this inside of a break tag. And if we save our page and we refresh in the browser, you can see that each of the associated values with each of the albums is now printing on our page. So we have the name of the musician, which is printing in bold, and then we are using our for each loop to loop through are nested arrays, and we're pulling that information and having it display on the page as well. These two examples just show you a few ways that you can use multidimensional arrays to access information within your page. Multidimensional arrays give you a ton of flexibility because you're able to store multiple values within one variable.